Okay, hello everyone. We are here live again. I'm really excited. I'm Allegra, the as you coined me, the marketing medulla, but I'm also the founder of the W.I.N community, as you all know. Really excited to bring support to these spaces. I have a guest today, a special guest, and this is one of the first times that I'm doing this. From the project perspective, we actually have a bust out project that we've been doing to really support breast cancer awareness. And I was introduced by my mother to Miss Pam Fields, who I just heard a little bit of her story. I was very just encouraged. I was just, shocked and just and just really just humbled by some of the things that I've already heard. So I want you all to experience this as well. We are women in business. We're also women in life, and we have to honor the fact that these experiences, as we share them and as we grow in our journey, we're able to empower other people. So I have Pam here. So, Pam, if you don't mind, okay, just introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, however you want to share, and then we'll go into this interview conversation. Y'all make sure y'all share this live. But, Pam, I'll pass it over to you.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for having me today. This is definitely a journey that I was not anticipating to be on. However, any way that I can possibly give somebody hope and support, I am more than happy to do so. So, my name is Pam Fields, and I am a breast cancer survivor. I'm a mom of three. I am a grandmother of three and a half. We got one in the oven. And I am a business owner. I also, my day job is with Allegra's mom. And so I really love her mom so much. And so she just kind of was eased on in there. So I don't have any choice but to love her too. So I just really want to thank you for the exposure that you're giving to breast cancer. And hopefully, um, I can't even make this a woman of color thing, just women, period. I just need you to be your own advocate. So thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on and thank you for sharing that. And just to know that you are a woman that has created legacy in your life. You have children that are having children, and knowing that everything you do impacts their lives and people around you and them. How 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 much does that how much drive does that put in you? Like, have you ever felt like that made you want to do more with your story because you have a legacy that you're passing down?
Absolutely. When I first got diagnosed, I got diagnosed January 7th of 2022. And I remember my PCP calling me. Um, and she was like, "Do I need to give you a minute?" Because, as soon as you hear, "Are you sitting down?" you already know what's going on, right? And so she was like, "Do you need a minute? Do you need me to call you back?" I was like, "I don't have a minute. Like, I do not have a minute. I need whoever." I didn't even know what an oncologist was. I'm just being completely transparent because it was so far out of the realm of what I knew. Now, in my uh family history, if you said diabetes, if you said stroke, if you said, heart attack, I would have had all of that, high blood pressure. But breast cancer, it just was not a part of what I knew. So my daughters, absolutely. I That was the driving force. I knew that if I didn't stay in a positive space, then they were going to be scared, and they're grown. My youngest is 18, and then my twins are 28. So, um, but I know my children, right? So I knew that if I, in any form of fashion, looked like my boat had been rocked, then that it was going to be a sinking ship. So I had to keep it together. Yep.
It's so interesting because when you said you felt like you had to keep it together, I think that that is a natural strong-willed thing in us as women, because at the end of the day, I mean, we a lot of us had to always keep it strong. I was just talking to my grandmother earlier, which you probably know, she's 90 years old, and she, my mom and I, we really care for her. And some of the things that I started thinking about, things that she had to deal with, right, as a woman, and things that my mom had to deal with as a woman, and some of the struggles that are a little bit easier for us now, to take control
Mhm.
over and say, I have the power opposed to not. I think is really a big factor, because I'm sure your daughters see life a little differently than you do. And go ahead. You sound like you about to say.
No, it was funny that you said that because the oldest twin was taking me to my first chemo. And so, just to give you a brief timeline, I found out on January 7th, 2022. Um, God gave me uh, my mission of what I was supposed to do, and I'll share a little bit of that. And then He gave me my assignment and what my lessons were going to be, and that was on the 8th. Like, He wasn't playing. It was like, okay, this is bigger than you. This is about you, but it's bigger than you. And so I had my appointment. I couldn't get in with the oncologist first, so I went to the surgeon first, and that was the 13th. I went to the oncologist on the 24th, and on February 4th, I started chemo. Like, we weren't playing. And I had no inkling of what was going on. I didn't know, the jargon. Now I could probably write a medical book, but back then, all I saw, and you sometimes it's a double-edged sword, that health portal, like, you can go in and look at your results. Sometimes that's not the best thing, because I went in and all I saw was grade 3. Now, just from hearing people, it's not that way now, but back in the day, grade, stage 4 honestly was a death sentence. It's not that way anymore. However, 3 was too close to 4 for me. It was just a little too close for comfort. But it was a grade 3, and I'm sitting here like, okay, is that interchangeable with stage? You don't know anything, like, zip. And so I was a stage 2, but I was a grade 3, which is the most aggressive. And I had invasive ductal carcinoma. And it's probably more of it's one that is a little bit more familiar to most people. You have HER2 positive, HER2 negative. I mean, it could go on for days. But my daughter was taking me, the oldest twin, with Kiana, was taking me to my first chemo. And she said, I know you're mad at God. And I'm sitting there like, no. She said, I know you want to ask him why. And I'm like, no. And then I had to tell her, I said, you know what? I'm not mad. First of all, if not me, why not me? You know what I'm saying? What would make me so different that from anybody else? That's number one. And then I almost thought about it. I was like, if I did have an attitude about it, what a disrespect for all the women that had it before me. Like, I'm better than them. The bottom line is, this is the cards that I've been dealt, and we just gonna have to, hit it full force. And that's what I decided to do. But she was a little baffled, because I think she was mad. She was probably more mad than me. But we didn't have a family history. um I had a cousin, and I think I shared that with you. My cousin had it 2 years before me, at the same age I was then. I was 54, I'm 56 now. And but nobody, we've done the whole family thing, the tracing and everything, and there is nothing in our family. And so it was hard. But the best advice I got from my cousin was from her first visit for her chemo. And the lady said, you can either come in here and be Debbie Downer and go home and, have a pity party, or you can come on in here, get your treatment, go get you a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and, be as positive as you can. And that's what I decided to do. I just I started from the beginning that way. So
So I'm just very impressed by, and y'all, I apologize if it's getting a little bit of a delay here. It's probably the area again, but I'm going to say that I'm very impressed by how, you have this positive mindset around your journey. And people talk about it all the time, being in the right mindset. And I feel, and let me
mhm.
just ask you on this, because you have your own YouTube series. Y'all go check it out. We're going to drop the links. And you do have, platforms that you created to boldly walk in this journey, which I highly commend it. And as I was talking about, the Bust Out Project, we haven't even like really looked at what all that's going to include, because we have some things laid out. But some of the areas that you're talking about applies to what we say like a survivors discussion. You said something to me about even being part of this sorority and being able to have like-minded people around you that can really help you through that. I know that there are some people that may need that same type of support and positive mindset, especially with the world being in like this mental health crisis. I feel. What do you think was your biggest encouragement throughout this process that kept you in alignment with your own faith and your beliefs?
That's a good question. I honestly, I'm gonna be honest, without a support system and without God, I don't know how anybody would be able to get through this. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying that I know that that's where honestly my strength came from. Um I it was days. I think the agreement, let me put it this way. The agreement I had with myself was I knew for a fact that I was going to have those days when I just could not do this anymore, like literally, like drained. But I made an agreement with myself that I could have those days. I just couldn't stay there. I just couldn't stay there. And I remember posting on YouTube about it was just one of those days. I mean, when I talk about the ugly Oprah cry, I was there. And but I never wanted to make anybody believe that one, it was an easy journey, but at the same time I didn't want anybody to think that it was impossible. Yes, you can get through this. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely, it's going to be hard. However, if you stay focused to the end result. Now, I don't know about everybody else. I just knew it never crossed my mind that I was going to die. Like it just never crossed my mind. And I don't know if that was because of the way that I decided to go into it in the beginning with the positive outlook, but it just never, I knew that this was bigger than me. Like there was no doubt. I knew that I had to spread awareness for women to be able to make sure that they got their mammogram, because in all honesty, I almost didn't go that year. I almost did not go. It was, not necessarily in the peak of the pandemic, but it definitely, we were still at the tail end, and I was like, oh, I'll go next year, because I had always gotten the little letters in the mail that said, hey, you're good. Your boobies are fine. We'll see you next year. And so it had to be God that said, you know what? I'm going to need you to go ahead and go. And I can also tell you, when I came out, I knew when I walked out that building, I knew I was not going to get that letter that year. I knew I was not going to get that letter. Now, I've gotten that letter. I was 54, 53 at the time. So at that point, I had been getting them for 13 years and had always gotten a letter, walked out the building and knew I was not going to get that letter. Now, it wasn't for that particular reason that maybe you're thinking. Honestly, I thought the lady was talking too much and she messed up my scan. I promise you that was what my thought process was. So I'm just gonna go back in there and do the three, another 3D, and they're gonna send me on home. That did not happen. And so yeah, you have to muster up that courage. You just have to find it. And some days it is literally like scraping the bottom of the barrel. It just is.
I really appreciate that transparency because I don't think a lot of people are willing to go that far, that deep to say that this is how it can really realistically be. Like, we all have hope for the future. And then something else you said about being in that place where you actively believe in yourself
Mhm.
outside of just having, outside of having a faith bigger than you, but even having belief in yourself at the same time. Like, I can do this. I have support. So I have a question that came up while you were speaking because there's so many layers to this, y'all, that I could probably go on forever with this conversation. But we do not have more than an hour for y'all. So I'm just going to be very realistic about some of the things that are coming up. Okay.
Okay.
Um, how do you thrive rather than survive when it comes to this breast cancer? Because it is something that I'm seeing that can be a survival mechanism where you're just like, I'm just getting through the day, getting through the day. But it seems like there's an avenue where you can still thrive. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes, I think that you do have to be okay not being okay on days where you need that support. So, for some
Mhm.
that may feel like, well, I'm surviving, right? But
Mhm.
when I hear your story, and when I hear you talk about how you didn't look at it as a this is happening to me, but you looked at it as it's happening for me so I can be a vessel for other people. And that's
Yeah.
so necessary. And that to me sounds more like thriving than surviving. So, what is your take on that?
I definitely feel like I went. It's so funny because for years I kept asking God, "What is my purpose? What is my purpose?" And my day job, I work with kids, and I've been almost doing this for 20 years, and I love children. But I knew that it was something more. Now I didn't think it was this. I'm gonna just be honest. It was not. This was not what I would have selected. But to have people send me screenshots of their um, mammogram letters that they're okay. I've had to hold a couple of people's hands when they came back negatively and they had to go back and get retested. Thank God. Um, when they went back, there was nothing, it was mass tissue and not necessarily anything more than that. Um, to have relatives and friends call me and say, "Hey, so and so got diagnosed. Is there any way that you can talk to them?" That in itself was the gift that I received back because I had to go into service mode. I know for without a doubt that and I think I shared this with you. I I had a resource that was given to me, almost didn't you know how they throw the ball and I almost didn't catch it. And but it's expensive. Now I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. From January, when your benefits start all over, right? By February 15th, I had already met my $5,000 out of copay, my deductible. And by April, I had already met my $9,000 out of pocket. So I hadn't even got to half of the year. But it's still, with those things, becomes very expensive, right? I went to the doctor twice a year, and that was it. One of them was a routine visit, and then the other one, I probably had to pay for it, but it was, an office visit. It wasn't any more than that. So this was a big deal. And I'm a single mom of three kids. And so, as much as I would love sometimes for them to be out of my pocket, if nothing else, the grandkids were back in my pocket. So I was just like, oh my goodness. But there was a resource that was given to me, and I'll share it with you all. It's called Copays with an S.org, copays.org. And I received a $16,000 grant that was just my oral chemo. And maybe I'll just share this part really quick. I had 24 rounds of intravenous chemo. 12 of those was what most people may know as the Red Devil. I chose to call it the Red Angel. Um, I had a double mastectomy. Um, and I chose to go flat. Um, and then I had 5 weeks of radiation. And then I thought I was done, but because they had to take out 15 lymph nodes, one of them were on fire, so it was still lit. So I had to do 8 cycles of oral chemo. So next month will be my 1 year of me being completely off of an active regimen. But that oral chemo was $3,000 every 21 days. Now I'm good, but I ain't that good where I was able to have that. So this particular grant fell in my thank you for putting that up. Um and it's not just for breast cancer. I Of course I'm looking for my friends that I knew that had different, diseases or ailments or health concerns, but lupus is on there, diabetes is on there, COVID was on there. So all of these things were on there. Um and so anyway, um, they gave me $16,000. They gave it to me in January. I had to the next January to be able to use it up. They went back 6 months to be able to see if there was any bills outside of that time frame. And on top of everything else, they were kind enough to reimburse me for my insurance premiums. That check came directly to me. And so I would be leaving out of the doctor's office and God would stop me and say, go on back. And I'll be like, oh, no, these people have no clue. They're going to think I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But I would go in and I'll be like, hey, I'm not crazy, but there's this program, it's called copays.org. And, and every single solitary time that person would need it, I have shared with the pharmacist, the clerks, just because they come in with so many people needing medicine and different things. And one particular lady, she needed it for her husband. I had no clue, and so I have just had to come to the conclusion: none of me and all of God. If that's what He wants me to do, that's exactly what I do. And so it makes me feel uncomfortable a lot of times, but the reward is that I was obedient, and the person who needed to hear it, or multiple people that needed to hear it, heard it. So, and if they do not have funding, get on their waiting list. They will tell you when the funding comes back. So, yeah.
Okay, so this is gold. If y'all did not, catch it, okay. I love the story, and you being able to share in this way, like you're right. A lot of times, from what I've witnessed, is that people don't want to share. It's like, oh well, I'll charge for that, or I'll, like for whatever reason. But the power
Yep.
that comes from sharing your testimony and changing someone's life because of that, I can't imagine how many lives you've already touched. I
Oh,
can't
thank
imagine
you.
how many lives you're touching in this live, just from someone seeing and saying, you know what, that's exactly what I was praying for. And just being able to be a
So that,
vessel for people, like the way that you were just speaking on someone that, I talk about this in community a lot. And this is why, community is so important, is that, we live in a world where people are constantly telling you, nothing's free and you got to do this to get that. And just to
yeah.
feel like you can be in a safe space to share share and to be comforted and to know that somebody understands you, I think is
Yeah.
invaluable. So, from what you're doing, first of all, kudos to you for just showing up the
Thank
way
you.
that you do. It is rare. It is rare. It is needed, and I encourage any of my, my followers and my community members. And what I'll be doing also is because Pam is definitely someone that's kind of leading us in this positioning because we're not even starting this project until October. But because
Mm.
Pam has such an amazing story, I was like, let's share it now and let's use this story as a way to position other people to know what they need to do, where they need to start. So now that we've given you guys some resources, right, you can share this live, of course, and tell all of your friends about what Pam is letting us
Mhm.
know. But before we get to the end and find out how we can follow Pam and get to know more about her and her spaces, I just want to know, Pam, do you have any thing that you think someone in this stage, because you said it yourself, you weren't even thinking about getting that checkup, you were kind of like good to go. But is there any advice that you would kindly, serve as a reminder, or just for anyone, maybe they have never had any history and they're like, I'm not a threat. That's not, in my wheelhouse. Any advice that you would like to hand out before we start ending the live?
Well, I think a couple of things come to mind. The first thing is um, get checked. The second thing is um, women are not always taken seriously um, when it comes to their health. The majority of us know our bodies, right? We know that something's not quite right. Even if we don't want to acknowledge it, we know something's not quite right. And well, up until I had breasts, I don't have them anymore, but I never felt my lump, never felt it. And so the reason that I never ever felt it. So that's why it's almost like they're kissing cousins. You have to do your monthly exams because most people that's how they find them. I wouldn't have been able to do that because I'd never felt mine. So that's why it's paired with your mammogram. Now, if you do have a family history, please do not take no for an answer. If your doctor tells you that you're not old enough or the insurance will not pay for it, find another doctor because or if you feel like there's something off and they're not listening to you, the magic number is 40. But there are so many women out here that are in their 20s, that are in their 30s, that could have possibly been a stage 1 or stage 2, but because they were told by somebody they trusted, their physician, that they were too young, they're now stage 3, they're stage 4. And so that's number one. Be an advocate for yourself. Um, I always advocate for people to make a choice if they want a second opinion. I knew as soon as I met my oncologist and my oncologist surgeon, I didn't need to do one. I knew that was my team. I don't know how, other than God, I promise you, I didn't have to go. And um, they, from start to finish, I had a really, really bad um reaction to one of the chemo. I guess it was like a little pairing that they had that went into my chemo regimen, and my skin on my forearms started to burn from the inside out. um if you have to go through anything, just because I had an allergic reaction does not mean you will have an allergic reaction. I see so many people on TikTok and all these other platforms that have taken the same chemo that I took that burnt me from the inside, because I've never had a chemical burn, but Lord knows if that's what it feels like, God bless whoever has. And my doctors knew that when I called them and was in tears, they were like, now come in now because you don't ever complain. So I you have to realized that just because somebody else went through something or had a hard time, I was scared to death of the red devil, or what is known as the red devil. That was my easiest chemo. That was the easiest one. Um, some people had a problem with having their breasts removed. I was like, you served me well, but you trying to kill me. You got to go. And I just, you gotta go. But I was just that person that I wasn't. My doctor, I asked my doctor when we were trying to decide whether or not I was going to do a double mastectomy or a single mastectomy. And I asked her for 3 questions that I could ask myself. And she said, okay, I can give you one. Do you want to come back in here every 6 months thinking that it's spread to the other one? I was like, cut that puppy off. I didn't, and I, depending on, and I hate to say this because I don't want to sound, there are doctors that are men that really are in tune. But sometimes, men are men and they like boobies and butts. So they may not give you all of the aspects. Sorry, guys, but they may not. And so flat is an option if that's what you choose to do. It's your body. You have the choice to do whatever you want to with your body. And because of the fact that I had such a hard time with that particular chemo, I decided my body couldn't take anymore. So to go in and do reconstruction, because my original thought process was I was going to do reconstruction, but I just knew that I could not, my body couldn't take anymore. So that's why I decided to go flat. Now, my boobies are in my closet right now. I have never worn them because when I got fitted for them, I was going through radiation. And because your body can, your skin can tear, of course, they're plastic and they didn't want, a rubber or whatever, they didn't want it rubbing against it. So now I don't even care. I have never worn them. So I think you have to do what is best for you. And I think if you keep that at the forefront of your mind, it doesn't matter what your cousin went through. It doesn't matter what your mom went through. It doesn't matter what your friend went through, your coworker. What is the best avenue for you to get through this? And like you said, not just surviving, but thriving in the process, because there is life after cancer. Bottom line is, I had cancer, but cancer is not Pam. It's just not me. It is a part of the journey that I've gone on, but that's not who I am. I'm so much more than that. And so the gift that I have been given is that like I said, I can serve others. So before we jumped on this live today, I went and made a new Gmail. So if anybody needed support, because it can feel very lonely, Lord knows, you could be in a room full of people and you could feel extremely lonely. So I made a just for this, and it probably was time. But if anybody needs support, or if there's anything that I can do to try to help, it is Pam's, with it as Pam's Cancer Journey 2022 at gmail.com. And I'll be more than happy. If you don't have that support system, I'll be more than happy to stand in the gap for you, because you can get through this. This doesn't have to be a death sentence. It just does not. It is what you make of it. And like you said, if you don't share, what was the purpose? What was the purpose? If I didn't share, if I didn't come on here, or if I didn't stand up and embarrass myself in the middle of a doctor's office, literally, what did I get? I got a whole year and a half. And I mean, and I didn't share this with you, Allegra, but 18 months ago, I was not walking. The chemo got me that bad. I was not even walking. I was on a rollator. At any given time, I could literally fall over. From going from, and my bedroom is not that big, but from my bed to my bathroom, my heart rate would go up to 161. I had to switch out my regular like tub shower combination to a walk-in because just to try to lift my leg over, my kids were scared that I would fall or bump my head or any of those things. So God has brought me, as my mama would say, such a mighty long way. So I can't help but be able to give that gift back out into the world because it was given to me. So
It is such a pleasure to hear that. So, y'all, listen, you're gonna have to dig a little deeper inside of Pam's story when we do the overcoming live on the podcast. That is definitely going to be we're gonna air that in July. I think the first week of July, but we're recording that next week. So I'll be having Pam go a deeper dive into her story. I'm gonna ask some more intriguing questions about this because this is pretty deep. I love the fact that you've shared. Y'all take this email lightly. I always tell people do not flood these emails because this is just a courtesy for you to just really get some insight, gain some connection to Pam, right? She's not charging y'all for this. She's just giving of herself at this
absolutely.
point, but be respectful of that. And I also just, for those of you who are maybe a little confused, I love what you said, Pam, about listening to your body. I'm so big on that now. I just didn't know that before as much as I do now. But once you know better, you do better. And I appreciate that sentiment because there are so many of us that are following other people's journeys and just hearing
Mhm.
your story and witnessing that you had no other journey to follow. Like there was no roadmap. Even if you wanted to say, oh, well, there was some in my family, so I can go to someone who can give me advice, you had no one. And I think that a lot of people feel like that. They feel like I have no one. Like no one understands what I'm going through. Even if it's a little bit of a scare, like, do I have something? Is this something I need to see the doctor
Mhm.
for? Right? Because a lot of
Mhm.
us are really scared to even check out to see, like I think you said it too. Something ain't right, but you just don't really want to like do anything. So I think, this is a great avenue for y'all to just reach out. I felt warm in this interview. I felt like this interview was such like a girl talk, one on one. Like, let's just, talk about what's really on. And now that we're, at the end of this live, I would love for you to give people an opportunity not only to connect with you on your Gmail, because they will flood you with emails because people do, obviously, we're going through things. So we are going to have people that
Absolutely.
need you. But I want people to understand how to follow your journey as well. Are there any channels that they can go to say, hey, I'm going to follow that journey, maybe watch her lives, or even here in the community as we share? I'm going to invite Pam on the survivors discussion so we can follow your journey there. But what about outside of that? What do you have right now that we can join you and support you in?
Well, I think probably the easiest way was TikTok. I originally, like I said, I kind of over the years have changed my YouTube station from this to that to this to that, whatever I was going through. But TikTok allowed me to show up and I didn't have to edit because I just didn't have the energy because I literally worked through chemo. I literally would go to chemo from 8 to 12 and then come home and work until 5. And so I just did not have the energy. And so with TikTok, literally, I just had to push a button and keep it moving. So probably TikTok is going to be the easiest, and it's PMF 12396. And that was also Pam's cancer journey, if you can, search that. But you just, I'm so grateful to you, Allegra, because um, this was not something that I ever anticipated doing, no more than I anticipated standing up in somebody's lobby. But I am a firm believer that God will put you in the avenues that you need to be able to spread whatever information that He needs you to spread. And I commend you, because the bottom line is, yes, we all have breast, but this is an avenue that, who even knew, why did you turn down this avenue? So just for you to empower the entire woman, whether it's through business or health or whatever, the other avenues that you expose the ladies to, I wholeheartedly thank you, um to for being that advocate, and being able to give that platform, so that people don't think that they're alone. I don't care if it's just starting a new business or if you just found out you had cancer. The bottom line is, a lot of times we feel like we're on an island by ourselves. And so, with you coming in multiple directions and being able to shed light on different aspects of the woman as a totality, I thank you, because I think that is so tremendous. And what a wonderful gift that you're giving so many people. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It makes me a little teary. Y'all know how I am. I'm super emotional inside, very, very mushy and gushy. And I appreciate that so much, Pam. And thank you for just sharing your journey. I look forward to hearing more about it. Like I said, y'all, make sure you're tuning in to Pam's channel. I put it up there on TikTok. I will definitely be tuning in, watching you. I heard so many great things about you before I met you, and this is the power of networking. Just
Mhm.
asking, who do I need to connect with for these things? Because you showed up and because you were willing to share, that's why we're here today as well. So it is so mutually beneficial for both of us to just be here. Y'all, make sure,
Yeah.
please, do me a favor, drop Pam a million and one hearts, share her to all your friends and family, and we will
Thank you.
come back here on the channel again soon. Pam, thank you again, and we will see y'all
My pleasure.
soon
My
on the next.
pleasure.
Bye, y'all.